Go ahead, Brenna.
Oh yeah, I'm in Seattle. Also social distancing myself.
I'm in San Francisco, also very socially distant. I for those who aren't aware, I did Yang Prince and I helped a little bit on Yang Near Me.
Very useful sites, by the way. I use it all the time. I bug you all the time on that, right?
I guess let's give it a few more minutes for people to come in, maybe 2 more minutes.
I have to take off around 12:45-ish.
Okay. Thanks for joining, though.
No problem. So I'm kind of just a update or something. I'm working with the David Kim campaign. I'm working on his website using WordPress template, make it easy. And going to help him with the data analytics. He's buying a bunch of data from a bunch of different sources, and we're looking to combine them and make sense of it and have a strategy.
Is that all just voter data, or what other kinds of data?
Yeah, voter data from like L2 and a bunch of different sources.
I don't know the jargon. What's L2?
It's just a company that sells voter data.
No, I see.
So I'm looking to maximize my involvement with his campaign in particular for Humanity Forward.
Are you still working with Liam O'Hara?
No, I donated to him. I contacted him, but he doesn't communicate a lot. So, and I think it's just better focus on David. Just guarantee that win first. Want to guarantee that win.
Sorry, I'm coming in a little late. Are you talking about David Kim?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, we're not. We haven't officially started yet. Just chatting.
To I guess finish the introduction stuff. I'm Yenny. I'm in Massachusetts. I left my house for the first time in a week to go to a doctor's appointment.
Oh.
So yeah, my husband's not letting me leave the house other than that because it would be just my luck.
I'm not sure where we're at with intros, but I'll go. I'm Travis. I'm based in San Francisco. I've been helping with down ballot candidates via distributed forward and helped get the ball going on Yang Near Me. Mike Wong, who's on here, is the real powerhouse there.
You're both downplaying your own role, so someone must be lying. Maybe both.
Or there's a third party that neither of them are talking about.
We contracted it out, actually.
Well, there definitely is all the data.
True.
I had invited Simon to this as well, but he never got back to me. Actually, Erica, do you have any updates on whether you're still working with him or how that? What do you have a relationship with?
Yeah, Simon is still working for the Hawk. He's Hawkfish with the Bloomberg, and he is a nights and weekends kind of guy for us right now. So I'm not surprised he's not on this call. I was surprised if he would be, to be honest. But yeah, he's working on our website right now using a.
Oh, there he is.
Oh, is he here?
Hey, Simon.
Mr. Tam.
Yeah. So.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for organizing this.
So we were just actually kind of going over with Erica. You currently are contracted, like a paid contractor with Humanity Forward?
Not a paid contractor, more like a volunteer.
Oh, okay.
Just like y'all.
Gotcha. Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we have a pretty good quorum here, so I'll just get this agenda that we had open. So the people who are invited, who are not here, just to quickly see who they are. So Angelina was one of the kind of managers of the volunteer tech team that Simon ended up directing at the end there. So she didn't join. Dan Trampty, it looks like he didn't join, but he's well connected with all of us. Hugh, you've talked to Hugh before, Erica. And then, oh, Ken. Ken, would you mind also giving yourself a quick introduction? I see you crept on here.
Yeah, hello everybody. I'm Ken Mortar. I'm based out of Raleigh, North Carolina, and I worked with Simon on the campaign's website team.
Hey, Ken. Good to see you again.
Likewise.
Hey, Ken.
Cool, and Zach, it looks like Zach just showed up too. All right, let's dive in. So, I don't know, I want to keep this kind of focused, but it's very broad at the same time. So, everyone, this is a very diverse group of contributors. So I just wanted to kind of see what are our most urgent needs, or what we should actually get started on are, because I think a lot of people want to just get started on contributing to something, but it's also good to have that overall picture. So roughly, I've seen people talk about organizing internal productivity. There's just categories, which is like, should we replace Slack with something else that doesn't alienate as many people, or is more better at preserving history, or stuff like that? It doesn't seem that.
Hey,
urgent
Luke,
to me. Yeah.
sorry to interrupt, but
Go
can
ahead.
we maybe do a very slightly higher level and talk about like it says our needs? Is that referring to volunteers or Humanity Forward? And then can we maybe just talk about like scope and like
Sure.
who the meeting's for and what our goals are?
Okay, to me, I think it's both volunteers and Humanity Forward. That kind of, I just put this note down here. How much of this is shared between Humanity Forward and Grassroots? And I don't want to like dominate this conversation, so anyone should just jump in, like Travis just did. I think there are people here who want to build tech for Humanity Forward, whatever that may be, but those desires don't necessarily match with what Humanity Forward's needs actually are either. But maybe those things can then become, Grassroots tech needs also. So it's a little bit nebulous. Catherine, what's up?
Yeah, I was also imagining this meeting is, we're having a conversation about what Erica and Humanity Forward are kind of setting up for themselves tech-wise, and then like what we're setting up for ourselves tech-wise, and like where those overlap, and just so we get in parallel positions rather than kind of hitting a wall later on where it's like, oh, if I had only known.
Yeah, so some of the background to this is that people like Travis have been putting together people in rooms to talk about what the tech needs of the whole movement are. And then meanwhile, people like Hugh and Yenny have been thinking like, oh, well, there's things that both HF, HQ, and the Grassroots movement can use. And at the same time, the first time I talked to Erica, she was also like, yeah, I've been evaluating tech platforms for myself. And I was like, okay, well, there's like clearly some shared needs here across many people, and maybe we should just figure it out together. Travis, do you have any suggestions about how to address the other things you're talking about, like scope and things like that? You're muted.
Sorry, I was muted. I think that gives exactly the sort of context I was looking for. I imagine we'll get to it, but I would love to hear from Erica about some of the HF needs and maybe some of I see Galaxy Digital here, but I'd love to hear about the platforms they're evaluating. Totally agree that to the extent possible that we can use very similar, if not the same tools, if and when we come to interoperability and data sharing, that seems to make a lot of sense to me. So I love the goals.
Okay.
Does it make sense that I go through what we are using right now and what we're looking looking at? Okay.
I start really quickly. I could also probably do the same in terms of how we're supporting, how Distributed Forward is helping the down ballots. It's probably way less comprehensive, but happy to also share that context.
Sure. Why don't we do like 5 minutes each or whatever?
Okay.
I think Erica has more. So.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know if I have more. Humanity Forward, we're small. We're a very small organization. We have a lot of the same tech carried over from Yang 2020 for just everyday use. So we're using things like G Suite for email and documents, etc. We're using Asana for project management. We have 1Password for storing our passwords, and we use Slack internally. So that's our everyday usage. We have Help Scout, just bringing online the email team with that. And other than that, that's where we are with our tech. I am in discussions of building out membership and chapters and all the things that come along with that. So that's why we are looking at something like Get Connected from Galaxy Digital. I've looked at some other companies as well. That one has really floated to the top because we need something to manage a membership / volunteer oriented organization. So that's pretty much it. That's what we have going on. You probably thought we had more, but we really don't. We're trying to be a thin and lean and fat, efficient organization in our offices. And we're looking to you all to contribute as much as you're able to help us get the Army built. So
I can also speak a little bit to the site and like those web properties. So we have, we have a static site, like a landing static site, and we're currently in the process of porting it over into a CMS-based one. So we're going to do Jamstack with CMS for that one. We're also going to be building out a site to support the podcasts that's coming up next month. And I know at some point there was some discussion about a data privacy project. I'm not sure how far that's at, Erica. But.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of information on that, but there is a data as a privacy with rights app that's being discussed. Yang himself is working on that.
This is, in a sense, kind of might be counter to that last topic, but I'm curious how the organization's thinking about like web analytics across those properties. Is tracking like how people are getting to Humanity Forward on your radar?
So, I mean, we have a standard like web tracking, the Google Analytics, etc. We haven't really dived too deeply into it. I think most of our traffic is coming in from our social channels. So you would see the general standard refers reps from there. But there's nothing more that we're really doing in that sense, because a lot of things are sort of launched and created very, very quickly. Like there's a very, very short ramp up time. And yeah, that's sort of where we're at.
We're 3 weeks old. We're still figuring out the vision and mission and the objectives and goals for the coming year. So these things are they're going to be on the list, especially based on the volunteer project that I have that I absolutely have to mention during this meeting. I don't know if now's the time to do it,
sure.
but.
I have one more question, Erica. Can you speak a little bit to what features or capabilities of Galaxy Digital are most interesting? Like why it's kind of risen to the top in terms of contenders?
Oh yeah, sure. It has a lot of flexibility when it comes to tracking volunteer time, and there's a map, if you will, that reminds me of Yang Near Me. That it's a feature where it shows you where there's volunteer opportunities near you. It has customizable fields for basically anything you want related to the volunteer. Yenny can help with this. She also looked at it with the representative. It also has some payment collecting features if that's something we need to do for fundraising. There's the location features is what really caught me. I was like, oh gosh, we could really manage this with our chapters and like making the chapter structure flexible. So it's not just location based, it could also be interest based. There's just a lot of information in this system that allowed us to expand the information we have about volunteering and or membership.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the other key point is that it's being looked at as a alternative to what we would use Mobilize as during the campaign. So it's I looked at a lot of its competitors, and it seemed to be one of the most user-friendly options as well, because it also has an app.
Yeah.
So we can have like volunteers download an app and stuff.
Their salesperson is hounding me. I did sign up to get a demo of it, but I haven't seen it yet. One thing that you haven't discussed, Erica, is fundraising and like potential donors. Is that something that is being treated distinctly from the volunteers within Humanity Forward, or is it the intent that there would be one approach to both of those?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Can you?
Yeah, sorry.
clarify?
Let me restate. We haven't yet talked about like fundraising. Is it the intent for Humanity Forward that the same sort of tool that would help manage volunteers would also assist with fundraising? You mentioned payments lightly regarding Galaxy Digital.
Yeah, there are some features in there for collecting payment and donations. I'm not sure how much we can integrate that because we are using ActBlue right now for all of that. So I mean that's probably like on the lowest end of the scale of importance for the app in that respect. But there were features there that were attractive. And plus, because we're looking at chapter structure and possibly having a dues structure, which is a whole nother conversation, there are places for that as well.
Gotcha.
I think the payment side on there is kind of like, do people need to pay to get into an event?
Right.
It's not really like a robust fundraising option where you could do pledges or anything like that.
No, yeah, it's not that. And I was going to say the event features of it are also exciting to me because you can do plan events based on many different metrics such as location, topic, classes. We can do a lot of things through this. But yeah, the collecting money was more about, do you have to pay for an event?
I see. Cool. That's really helpful.
A couple of questions here. Mike, why don't you go first?
Oh, fine. Does it include communication stuff that would replace like Hustle or other email channels? Okay, so no communication.
There is an email feature.
Yeah, you can tie it into a mailing list.
Yeah. Go ahead.
It allows you to remarket as well. So like it'll tell people like, hey, another event came up in your area, and we could set it to text them when that kind of thing happens.
Yeah.
I presume there's some fundraising activity going on today. Is that being managed in a CRM, or is people just wielding spreadsheets or what?
So I think that was what you're alluding to about the combination of fundraising as well as like the volunteer stuff. So there is no current unified supporter CRM. That would be something that I know like many different campaigns would be interested in, or many organizations would be interested in. Right now, the data that fundraising is being done through ActBlue. The form data, et cetera, is being collected through NGP Van in their not very great user-friendly form system. But there's not really like, short of having, there's nothing that ties them together per se. Like there's no better UI that sort of exports ActBlue or the NGP Van stuff or any of the other, I'm presuming from the Galaxy Digital thing. There's nothing that really unifies them at this time.
And NGP is our main source right now of information but it's all financial based, like who's donated, who hasn't, who's responded to emails for donating and who hasn't. It's mostly that. Who signed up on the website, who didn't. And, but yes, we definitely, during the campaign, we had a different setup.
Got it. Piggybacking on Michael's question a little bit, I realized that it sounds like the Galaxy Digital capabilities regarding like direct communication it has some, More broadly, is phone and text communication to volunteers and or donors something that Humanity Forward's interested in the shorter term? Is that
So
yes, no, maybe
for
so?
me, so for me, I need a little more clarity, I guess, because I was not part of the grassroots during the campaign. I was in-house doing IT stuff. So I know that for the field, you have like the phone banking and the texting and all of that was generated from Boat Builder,
Yep.
correct? And so going forward, when we start doing all of our, so we have multiple objectives here, I guess. This is kind
Is that true, Brenna? That
So are you checking out where we source the contacts for texting and calling?
yeah.
Okay, so we had two different kind of styles of voter communication via text message. We had our supporter texting, which was from the golden table, as Louisa referred to it as, but it was donors, people who signed up to volunteer, like a whole slew of different kinds of people who had indicated that they were interested in receiving information about the Yang 2020 campaign. And then we had our voter ID world, which that was pulled straight from Vote Builder or from Van. So it was kind of two very different beasts. What would potentially be very beneficial for Humanity Forward is to do that kind of peer-to-peer communication for volunteer coordination, inviting to or event invitations, and then general updates. It's also a really good fundraising tool as well, although I do not believe that it should be the primary fundraising, that should not be its primary focus. But throughout the campaign, we raised like $750,000 on the texting platform.
So that's Through Talk and Hustle, right? Are the two tech platforms?
That's what we used. Hustle has its benefits. It also has a lot of drawbacks. Price being the biggest one, especially for Humanity Forward.
Yeah, I would
Spoke
advise.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so actually I was going to say that. So yeah, so Spoke is something the one I'll take a look at. It's something we were looking at in the campaign, but we just, it suspended. So having a better Spoke setup would definitely be the most economic and most beneficial for text hacking. And if someone wanted to start looking at that, I would actually recommend taking a look at Elizabeth Warren's campaign and how they open source a lot of their tools and their tech stuff. I can sort of drop that link in here. But that'd be a really good starting point because that's how they're able to send approximately about 5 times as much, or rather like the texts are like 1/5 the price. So it'd be very beneficial.
So
cool. I can speak to that a little bit when I talk about Distributed Forward.
But just to note that Yang 2020 used Spoke and then Hustle, like they transferred everything from Spoke into Hustle, 2 different platforms. And then on the phone banking side, they also had, I think, 2 different platforms that were kind of competing for attention.
Yes, that's right.
Could we get a little bit of info on why the Spoke to Hustle transition occurred, given that the costs are much higher on Hustle?
Why don't you start by saying what Distributed Forward uses first, and then
sure.
To that question.
So for those of you that aren't aware, Distributed Forward is a volunteer effort, mostly kicked off by Dan Trampty, Drew Corbett, and myself. It is a website and a Slack workspace. And what we are offering to what we're calling down ballot campaigns. So we're still working on what the specifics of the heuristics for acceptance or rejection of a campaign might be. So that's still not totally decided. Right now, there are 6 down ballot campaigns that we are helping, and we're helping in the following ways. We are bringing volunteers to perform text banking for them. We are bringing up Spoke instances, so like the technical infrastructure to run Spoke. So can talk about that in any level of detail, but we have many Spoke instances up. And we're doing a transparent costs pass-through in that we have the candidates set up Twilio and the hosting platform. We're using Google Cloud Platform. So we're just completely transparently passing the costs on to them, but then we're bringing volunteers to them. We're also helping them with the content inside of Spoke. So preparing the texting campaigns, doing some massaging of the data to get it into Spoke, as well as some basic analysis of the results of the campaigns and pulling the data back out into their other, whatever CRMs or other data tools they're using. With regard to, just to touch on it because I mentioned it, Simon's comment about, I looked briefly into the Warren team's contributions, which are awesome. I love that they put that out. The way that we're running Spoke so far is we're using App Engine, which is it's like a kind of a serverless plus model from Google, in that it doesn't cost you when you're not using it. And to date, the monthly costs of infrastructure outside of the actual texting, which Twilio provides, has been less than like $25-30 a month in the heaviest cases.
That's fantastic.
I think Brenna's, I don't know if she's still associated with the Mike campaign in Kentucky, but they're one of the heavier users, and I think it was like $30 one of the heaviest months on the Google side. So the actual texting costs from Twilio, which is basically the leader in that provider space, is the predominant cost, which is what you would want with a cost-effective solution. I can also, sorry. I just want to note really quickly that I also deploy, we have Google Analytics across we have access to all the databases, and we're doing ETL. We're basically copying the raw volunteer data into BigQuery so we can do analysis and tracking over time of the texting activity. And then I also instrumented all of the instances with Google Analytics. So then we can see, for example, if, where did the person come from to hit distribute forward that it has sent the most texts in the last week, is like a question we can answer with the analytics instrumentation that's been performed so far. I just said a lot of things. Any questions or clarifications?
Let's go to Erica.
Well, you did say a lot of things, and I have a very broad perspective of what happens in the field. Like broad's not the right, top level, like high up in the air. I don't really know much about the details of how everything works together. But with all of the data and the information and how we gathered and all the voters and just the level of information that we had and that the Warren campaign had, and here we are, we still have Joe Biden as the nominee. So I'm trying to understand how does our tech make it work so that people will see our vision as a mainstream thing and it become votable? That's kind of, I know that's really like very, flying high. We're not down in the weeds with that thought, but I'm trying to understand, like, how does our tech make our mission happen? Like, we have so much information that people that we text out, and what's the return rate and all those things, but how does that get us to what we want, which is for us to mainstream our ideas and to get Andrew's vision electable, not just for him, but down ballot and such. Is that too big of a question to ask in this meeting? Like, I don't know, like.
No, I don't.
Because a lot of that depends on, like, well, how much money do we spend on these things? How much time and effort do we put into it if we still get Joe Biden?
Yeah, I have a thought on this. It looks like Brian has a hand, and maybe Mike's cat too. So let's go to Brian first.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was a grassroots organizer in New York, and one of the things we ran into was just doing volunteer outreach. So the text, the bulk texting about events and such, that was great to get people to come to events. But then you really need to build a relationship with volunteers, and texting wasn't that great for that. The best thing is to get somebody to come out to an event. But short of that, I mean, we basically had our own phone banking without any fancy tools. We just got on Google Voice and called a bunch of volunteers. So I think from my perspective, that's a need that we have here in New York State and probably all across the country that we should be thinking about as well. So not just for texting about events and candidates, but kind of building relationships with volunteers as well.
I guess I'll go next and then resume the hands order. Yeah, I think that in order to mainstream and really get that many people on board, you're kind of talking about the message and refining the message. For example, like Spoke can help us send 1 million text messages out, but the tech part of that doesn't tell you what to write in that message, right? And that's really important. Like we had a whole bunch of people writing hustle messages, and some people were probably way better at writing scripts than others, but we didn't really vet that very well because we didn't have time. And it's really important. We could, of course, use data and whatever to figure those things out, or just better identify it somehow. But once you have that message, obviously the tech is crucial to distributing it to as many people as possible. So that's just my thought on that. Should we go, Yanni, Catherine?
I think Catherine probably raised her hand to say similar. In New England, we actually had really good results from the text banking because we had specific people texting from that area that they were then seeing in person at the events. So we were able to build up that kind of relationship where I would show up at the event and then I'd say my name and like, oh, hey, yeah, we were chatting on the thing. Yeah, my wife's doing better. Because like they had previously messaged me that their wife was sick, so they couldn't come to an event. And I remembered that because I had that conversation with them and was able to build that with them. Where I think a lot of the country was having it more done by people that were just doing the text banking side of things. And so it wasn't as much of a, like, the person hosting the event sent out the texts. So that I think that there was a different use case that we used texting for and a different way that we used it that enabled us to use it to build the relationships without having to go off platform. But yeah.
Catherine, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, in a similar vein, I think the New England area got the most developed on Hustle, where we had an active stable of texters from those states that were sending out their own texts. And I think most of the other states had, you know, folks from other states just mass sending the text. And I'd like to put in a word for Hustle as a platform. I'd like us to look at it more, you know, really analyze what the cost is, because Spoke and Hustle are different. So Spoke is by the campaign, so you have no history, whereas in Hustle, it's by the number. So when you go to send a new campaign, you can see every other texting communication that has happened with that person. So the first text they got, and then what people said. So you can go back and continue conversations, even if you personally weren't the texter. And especially when it's done correctly within a state, it's like we had our Hustle teams like on a Slack channel together. So if there was like some lack of clarity, we could, you know, just be like, hey, what is that? Or, oh, hey, can you go in and finish the conversation with this person? So to me, it was like really superior. And we just had these opportunities where we were able to take the zip code data from who was in Hustle and kind of make these maps of like density of supporters, and then reach out to them and say, you know, hey, there's like 82 Yang Gang in your town. Do you guys want to meet? And then help organize a first meeting. And, you know, so texting, I feel like, is a really good tool if used sparingly and for kind of volunteer connectivity versus fundraising. Like the way I look at it is anytime you text someone on their phone, you know, you need to leave them with a sense of, wow, they like really took care of me, you know, for it to not feel like an invasion. And when you're like, hey, you know, like you on this little island, there's 12 Yang Gang. Do you guys want to meet each other? And people are like, yeah. Or even if they can't or aren't interested, they realize that it was coming from a place of, you know, yes, here. And then, you know, I don't think that answers the question of how do we normalize the ideas, but it's how we get, I think, really dramatically improved volunteer engagement with, you know, the events we're going on. And then two quick things I'll just say is, one, the culture of the original texting team where there were leaderboards and people could really see like who the stars were. You know, like people were competing to be on top of the leaderboard and they kind of knew each other, who the regular texters were. And it really, you know, by that kind of instrumentation that Travis and others were talking about, you know, people feel seen and then they're like really appreciated by their community. And then the last thing is, you know, just we're setting up our MailChimps again to be able to send out a weekly email, because like people are not going to be in Slack, nor do they want to be. And, just getting those Facebook pages healthy and community again, and a weekly email being like, hey, here's the big thing that happened. And, here's the events you can go to, which for us right now are just Zoom hangs. Like, hey, come on out and hang out with New England, that kind of thing. And I'll stop there.
So I'm going to go back to a couple questions I had, and then Zach, if you want to go after me. So one is, we didn't talk about contact database or email lists. How is HF managing that? Or is that all in Vote Builder somehow?
In NGP right now.
It's all in NGP now. Okay.
Yeah.
So the Move Humanity Forward emails, whatever, the mass mails, that also, those contacts live in NGP?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was all imported from, go ahead.
And would Galaxy Digital be the place to manage that if that's what you guys select going forward?
So I'm thinking there's a couple of objectives that I think Humanity Forward is trying to fulfill here. And I do need your help, all of your help in figuring out exactly how to make these happen. So we want to have a longevity with Humanity Forward, not just election cycle. So we want a sense of membership to this organization, of volunteer work, building up communities, outreaching to communities, those kinds of things that go beyond just the election cycle. It's very important. The election cycle and getting people out to events to explain all of our viewpoints and message is critical. But we're trying to build a community that goes beyond voting, if you will, so that we can mainstream the ideas. Because right now, it looks like a strange Asian man ran for president and has these outlandish ideas that might not seem so outlandish at the moment because of what's going on with COVID. But yeah, so that's the objective. The mission is to mainstream and legitimize Andrew Yang's visions. So I just struggle with, we had so many platforms that were not unified, so we need a central CRM of some kind. Does that mean that we need, because we were using Civis to do that for us, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was Civis.
We were using Civis, but we weren't really, so the idea of a supporter CRM, unfortunately, has never, I haven't seen it in any campaign. And so that's like a missing tool. A lot of people will have CRMs for, I guess like a support CRM insofar as just donations and voting tracking, but not necessarily like coupled with volunteer activities or other measures that indicate, like going down that supporter funnel. So that thing, unfortunately, doesn't exist yet.
Right, and that's what I thought was missing for us to do what we're trying to do now. Is we don't have anything that like brings together the volunteer pool, and puts the focus on giving. The volunteers are the ones are also who will benefit from whenever these ideas become a reality. So it's just bigger than just trying to get people to vote for Andrew in 2024. And if we don't have a CRM that does the basics of getting people together and does it really well, I feel like we're just gonna not be where we want to be.
I agree with that 100%, Erica. We were just getting basically spreadsheets from the campaign, and so we needed to implement our own CRM to do the volunteer onboarding and tracking, what volunteer interests are, et cetera. So I think it's a key piece.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm articulating this as well as I can, but it just felt like we just had massive lists of stuff, but nothing to build on with it. Like it was, text these people over there, email these folks to get their money, but there needs to be something
There was nothing that brought it all back together so you could see, the whole picture of the volunteer.
Well, we sort of, okay, so I would say that we sort of tried to do that on the campaign with the, and some people from the tech team remember this, is the volunteer leaderboard thing. That was our attempt of gamifying rather a supporter, like Unifor supporter CRM. That was like a way of just exposing, like, given their participation, texting and phone banking and et cetera, donate, not quite donations, but that easily could have been added. How do we rank them or rate them as a supporter? The problem was, and I think Travis was alluding to this, the data is extremely hard to combine from different vendors. It was extremely sparse, and it was just so much headache into it. Now, if you can get that structure in place, then that'd be incredibly beneficial for not just this organization, but any organization that's politically active. So that'd be extremely, and it's been something that's been weighing on my mind very heavily since the campaign ended. I would also say, in addition to a CRM, the back-end part, you also need a good front-end part, or what to do with it. And I think that and maybe I'm speaking slightly out of turn, but like I think Humanity Forward can use a lot of help in with the direct response stuff, especially in how to deploy a lot of rapid, a lot of A/B tested direct response, like landing site pages, microsites, data collection, and then like leveraging the data to go back into the CRM for better targeting, for better supporter conversion. So it's like the two sides, the back end as well as the action part.
Zach, do you want to go? I don't know if your hand is still relevant. I can't hear you for some reason. You don't appear to be muted.
I have a quick response to what Simon said
first.
there, but so while Zach's figuring out his audio, I just want to note that part of why I jumped in to help Distributed Forward was that I saw that during the campaign, we didn't have, and getting to know some people that worked on staff, it seemed like just echoing the problems that Simon was just stating, that having the volunteer data spread across so many disparate systems made it very difficult to provide a high-level unified view of what sort of activity is happening in the volunteer network. Part of jumping in and helping with this set of down ballot campaigns, not only did I want to help them, but I also wanted to ensure that there was some consistency in terms of the tools being used, and from that we derive consistency in the data that volunteer effort is generating across all these campaigns. And I was jumping on that to thinking a little down the line, such that we'll have a consistently accessible and consistently formatted set of volunteer data. So once we want to start doing more interesting things like viewing the activity globally, we can start doing so. So I'm just going to jump in.
I think I'm working. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I don't know what that was all about. So yeah, I've got a few things. So talking about the CRM, where does something like Nation Builder fit into all of this? Does anyone have familiarity with that? Because I know that it was used at the beginning of the campaign and then it got pushed away for reasons that I heard rumors about that sounded ridiculous. But does anyone have any familiarity with Nation Builder? Because I know that you can like build paths, entire volunteer pathways, and like depending on the type of interactions, you sort of create these CRM things or whatever. I don't know. Anybody? Because I remember at the beginning of the campaign, there was like a gamification thing that was built in where there were these Yang bucks, and by performing specific actions, you'd get Yang bucks, and then that just went away at some point. And the rumor that I heard was that someone set it up from the outside, and then no one within the organization actually knew how to do anything with it. So they just ended up going to something that someone was familiar with.
Yeah.
I'll speak. When I joined the campaign, like we had just started to migrate away from Nation Builder, and I know one of the challenges was when we tried to integrate it with the campaign website in terms of collecting donations or volunteer signups, is it would crash. Like it crashed the site a number of times. Now that may not have been completely Nation Builder's fault. There probably could have been ways to continue using that service in a way that was not problematic for users, but I know in terms of that aspect, that was one reason why they moved away.
Okay, I think maybe that's just a tool to look into a little bit more, because I know that that has been used to great effect, and I knew that when we moved away from it, people who had experience with it were just like, why are they doing this? Like, there's so much more functionality that just wasn't being squeezed out of it.
That's what I heard from.
So that could be.
I heard from people too that Nation Builder is very capable. But in David Kim's campaign, they're moving away from it. Yeah. Because I think it's too expensive for campaigns to deal with.
Right. Yeah, cost is one. So that's just one thing. I going back to one of Erica's questions about the high level kind of building the tech to accomplish the goals. I think that if we're talking about longevity, I think texting is something that can be used to great effect. And I'm echoing everything that Catherine and Yenny were saying about and Brian about building relationships with people. I think that's super important, and I think that there are ways that we can either create something that had a lot of the functionality of Hustle, or build a better version of it using our open source tools. Because I've been thinking about all the different things that you could do that would just start with a very small group of people texting that could lead to a massively accountable volunteer organization. I won't go into that here, but I've told Bren about my weird volunteer pyramid scheme that benefits everyone. But the other thing is this question of, why is Joe Biden the nominee? I think this is a much larger conversation, not necessarily for this meeting, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the question that you're getting at is, do we want to be putting resources into technology for talking to and activating voters, versus do we want to be doing other things and potentially enhancing that with other tech solutions? So I see a lot of what Humanity Forward is doing right now as like starting the podcast, providing COVID relief, the other things but they all seem more about earned media than voter contact and managing volunteers. And so I'm wondering, is that the direction that you're thinking you're going in? Because you're thinking about, okay, if Biden was the nominee, he did it because of these things that are not what we are doing as a grassroots. And I think that's something that would have to be ironed out, because I think that we all here are coming from the grassroots side of things, when Humanity Forward maybe is not thinking about that as much. So, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't think you're wrong at all, Zach. There's a difference. Yang's viability to become president, or for his ideas to be taken seriously, requires a different level of acceptance in the mainstream, right? And that's mostly that's where he is right now. That's where his focus is in many ways. With the podcast, is mainstreaming his ideas. It's all about mainstreaming and making everything seem normal, because what we propose is very not normal. Now, for it to coming from the grassroots part of it, it's difficult in that if it's not mainstream enough, people won't care. This is my own opinion. This is not Humanity Forward's opinion. We haven't actually talked about this as a group, but do people, if they're not familiar with the ideas, feel comfortable in even attend? They might feel comfortable coming to an event and everything else. We had a lot of that, and they still didn't vote for for these things. So how much does grassroots influence the mainstream attention? How much does the mainstream influence grassroots growth? I feel like we have to figure that out so that we can get the appropriate tech to move us forward. So I don't know.
I have a response to that, but happy to go in order if Catherine.
Yeah.
Wants to go.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think the things that will move the Overton window on these ideas are, building out the American scorecard and, the podcast where he does things like he did with Lawrence Lessig, where it's like, okay, these are all the reasonable ways that we can give people more power instead of big money having power. And, so I feel like they move the Overton window that way with data and with that kind of conversation. And I look at an organization like Campaign Zero, which is focused on, among other things, like reducing fatalities when there are police interactions. And they are using police and government data to kind of show the differences between similar cities with, different police contracts and different rules of engagement. And so they're bringing data into conversations that basically is like reshaping the choices that legislators are making and that the public is asking for. So to me, it seems like, there's other people who have tried to build an American scorecard. There's like USA Facts, whatever, but they're not actually good tools that people can like engage with, like, okay, here's the realistic set of choices. And, rather than kind of, there's a lot of rhetoric and political ideology, where people just say things and you're like, that's not even a real solution, or that's just kind of fear mongering. So to me, like building the American scorecard and the podcast that Andrew is doing, the YouTubers that are out there in the Yang world, and also I think like a speakers bureau. I know for us, there's like in Massachusetts, there's a very well organized voter ranked choice voting campaign, and they set up a speakers bureau where it was like, okay, watch a video of someone doing it. Now you make a video of yourself, or you do it with someone live, and then you get the check and you have like a certain number of hours. And I know for us, we got an invitation from the Unitarian Universalist churches in Rhode Island to come out and talk about Yang's ideas. So I feel like there's this whole infrastructure where we need to like use data and, like all the stuff that Andrew uses to write his books, like War on Normal People, like just making that data accessible to the Yang Gang, and not even just the Yang Gang, but this bigger Move Humanity Forward group that we're building, so that they have this data and will bring it to all their local and state conversations and like change the conversation. So I think there is some tech involved around that, but it's also like open sourcing all that research that Andrew and crew have done. And then the other thing that I just wanted to say really quickly is data hygiene. So in Hustle, because there was no primary key, we got people double added. So people would do like a update my information form, and if the phone number was the same, but they were just changing their zip code, they would just get added in. So it's like we're kind of finding a way to knit together these separate data sources. Like Key is about like data hygiene as things go from one to another to another. And I know Brenna had the pain of doing the imports into Hustle, so I'll table that for now.
I just want to jump in with a time check. So we're not really like anywhere close to getting some kind of action items yet, but I think if we extended the meeting for a bit, we could still get there. I know Kwa has to leave maybe already in the past. Are people okay with staying on for another half hour or so? Okay. All right, then let's continue. Ken.
Yeah, I just wanted to call attention again to email. I know it was already added to the list, but like we're talking about like volunteer, portals and stuff like that. But email is like a pretty huge part of like running a campaign, and especially when it comes to getting donations. So I don't know if Distributed Forward has like kind of found like a solution that they're happy with that maybe we should pay more attention to, but we should not overlook email.
I can respond really quickly. It's something that some of the campaigns we're helping are reaching out to us for, and we do not yet have a recommended path. Somewhat relatedly, we've talked about how we don't really have a good way to recommend social media marketing. So like Twitter presences, Instagram, TikTok, etc. So those are certainly gaps, and we're looking for help there.
Okay, I think I'm next. So in getting things to mainstream, if we're looking at this as beyond voting, the way that Erica was just suggesting, I think the speakers thing is a huge part of that. It's like, what type of actions do you want your grassroots or whoever to be doing? if there's like specific things that they can be doing in the community that promote humanity forward agenda, that's great. But in the absence of voting, there isn't really clearly defined stuff. It's like you can support some other stuff related to politics maybe, but then there's this also like host a Yang Gang type of thing. And those things are more almost like community building church type activities where it's like spreading ideas, right? And the most powerful way to spread those ideas is probably by training people who are good at spreading those ideas more specifically, which we didn't really ever do. And that kind of stuff makes me a little bit queasy, but it's valuable, I think, so worth mentioning. I think it goes into this kind of module building or training type thing, which I think you know, it's also like scripts with text banking too, where it's like, we should have, here's your best recommended 1-sentence message. Here's your best recommended 1-page version of the message. Here's your best recommended 20-minute version of the message. You know, that's the kind of stuff, if we got that ironed out very early on, would be really helpful for all these situations where, you know, when you meet someone on the street or whatever. And the second thing I want to say, political strategy. So in terms of getting like UBI to mainstream, I think if we were running this as a super PAC, which I guess you will be too, probably supporting like identifying specific cities or states that could do a UBI before a national UBI is a good way to probably like move that national level acceptance of some of these issues. And that is not completely disconnected from grassroots, because you might end up being like, well, we've identified that Oregon is probably the most likely state, for example, to pass a statewide UBI. So how do we, you know, mobilize our people to kind of assist in that more limited agenda, which serves everyone? All right, Catherine.
Real quick, we use MailChimp in the New England states, where we sent a very targeted weekly email that all it did was, you know, here's the big push right now happening in the campaign. Here's some pictures of cool things we did last week. And then here's the list of, you know, all the calendar items that you could click through and, you know, sign up for. And we have a very high click-through rate on that, because it was, people kind of knew consistently what it was. An update, a little like, hey, here's what we did last week. And, you know, there was no fundraising attached to it. So it was just community information, really short. And then the other thing I'll just put in is, I feel like this community building is really important. The thing that I took out of watching this campaign cycle was, one, the Sanders campaign had like a level of volunteer phone banking, door knocking, phone banking, you know, like text banking, that we could like only dream of engaging the Yang Gang to like do that much. And they fell short, you know, for a number of reasons. And then the other thing was, in chatting with the Iowa Yang Gang, they talked about how they were surprised who came out and caucused with them. They had these great conversations on the doorsteps with people, and they, you know, over a couple of times, and those were not the people who came out for them. The people who came out to caucus with them were the people who, you know, knew them from the coffee shop that they worked out of every day, and kind of were like, oh, you're working so hard, and, you know, I really like these ideas. But, you know, it was kind of like they felt they had a friendship with them, and they were just like, you're working so hard and you're trying to get people to come out with you. Okay, I'm going to come with you. Or, you know, like some of the other ones that you see, where it was about the relationship that they had. So I really feel like, because of the media's control and signaling of what's legitimate information and not legitimate information, and especially because there's an age demographic that is still watching MSNBC and Fox, and, you know, it hasn't kind of dropped down to the YouTube channels yet, you know, we're really going to have to build out like these local chapters everywhere in order to overcome this media marginalization of the ideas.
I want to echo that. Like Bernie's, I think one of the best ways of convincing people to one topic is on personal connection, just to echo that point. And Bernie's app, his Feel the Burn one, had this amazing tool in which it would, once you installed it, it would search for your contacts, and it would ask you to fill in your friends' information, and they would use that one to help market or like target those connections, and utilize you as a vector into your social networks. And so seeing that tool, I think, again, ultimately he didn't get the nomination, but he did have a lot of, he built out his data incredibly powerfully. So.
Yeah, I want to chime in a little bit. I think we might be getting a little bit off topic and getting a little too theoretical, but I think it's important to kind of understand. I think I still come back to this feeling that there may be a mismatch, and I think that we should be very open about that, where it's like there is one side of things, which is our community building grassroots thing, that was like, let's say the Bernie strategy, who was like, he was not a part of the media, but he was one of the front runners. And then you have Biden, who was just like all about getting earned media, was in the news all the time, but didn't have any ground game. And I think that there is some kind of a marriage of the two. And I think that the tech that we build and bring to that should recognize that there is a separation and figure out how we can make those intersect in a better way. So if you've got a grassroots, tech group that is working on things that will help build relationships, how do you then leverage those relationships to help with the things that, say, Humanity Forward is focused on with the podcast and whatever PAC stuff and other earned media things that are being done. So it's like, how do you use your grassroots to get more clout within, or like get Yang on more media appearances? So I think but I think we should be open about the fact that there is a difference there, and that our goals may be slightly out of whack currently, but we can work together to get them more aligned.
Okay, we only have, let's say, 30 minutes left. So I just want to run through this list really quick and then give Erica time to talk about. So in terms of what types of tools that we have seen, internal productivity seems less urgent to me than maybe some of the other stuff. Anyone agree? Anyone disagree? Just speak up. Maybe less urgent than some of these other ones. Organizing outgoing communication to me seems more urgent. I guess what I mean by that is like, can we just say, here's a message, we want it everywhere, and then put that somewhere where whoever is doing social media or email lists or whatever the heck, however they communicate information to people, they should have like, know what the stuff is that needs to be sent out, and then if they need to massage it, they can. So that's just like a thing that I see as a need. Whatever I want to mark it. And then platform for listing and directing people to events. I know we're like virtual, but it still seems like what Yang Near Me did, like, or what Mobilize did in terms of listing stuff that's going on is still useful. So I think that's something we could do. And then this
Galaxy
platform
Digital would fit in.
Platform that tracks past and volunteer activity. This maybe seems just like the same thing as the support for CRM. No. So, yeah. Okay. So just wanted to get through that. Let's talk about Erica's specific need first, and then talk about maybe how that fits into action items that we can actually take from this. Does that make sense?
I feel like this conversation is just could go on. There's so much to talk about.
Yeah. So,
I just
do you want to keep it more focused, or do you want to? Is it nice to have these like kind of more philosophical conversations as well?
Well, I feel like we need to kind of get our arms around where we're trying to go in terms of what the tech can do for the mission. But in the same vein, there's a lot of things going on right now that I actually do need help with. So if you don't mind, I would like to just run through this volunteer opportunity that's happening right now and just see if what comes of it. So we have almost 20,000 submissions of people that need help because of the crisis that's going on. We have a donor that we want to target to get a piece of a large pie for the relief fund, but we need to collect some data from the submissions that we've gotten. So we want to present what kinds of people are submitting to get the relief fund, what their demographics are, age group, how their stories are being told, or their categories of kinds of stories that are being told, so that we have tangible data to bring to large donors to help tell the story so they feel better about giving us large amounts of money. So we have, I don't know if you guys have seen the Google form that we have online right now. I guess I could put a link into the chat. But the matrix that we were collecting originally did not have, if I knew that we were going to do this, I would have formatted that form completely differently. At the time, I did it so that I could get a story, get generally how much money they were making, very basic information, not how old are you, do you have children in the household? We didn't collect any of that kind of information, but a lot of the stories contain that. So I'm hoping that someone here or know of someone else or that would be interested in doing this and helping us get good data out of the 20,000 submissions and find out, how to organize it and make it into a report to give to high value donors so that they can be convinced by data that this is a good thing to contribute to. So that's the project in a nutshell.
Would you see that as needing to collect new information from these applicants?
Now, funny you should ask that. We are going to do something like what we did with One Fair Wage. We're going to start interviewing some people to gather information about their situation, but not for this initial run through.
So are we just looking for a way to kind of crowdsource the analysis of the form responses and put take the stories and put them into neat categories like this?
Yes.
Okay. And do you have a list of what you're trying to capture from the stories?
We have a volunteer right now that's working on that, like just kind of getting some sense of what we can get from the data that we
Is
do
that
have.
Ryan or someone else?
Yes, it is. It's
Okay.
Ryan. He's already very familiar with the data, so he's a good option to do that. And then, yeah, we just need some help figuring out the data to present and how to present it.
Catherine?
How many responses are there?
It's almost 20,000.
20,000, okay.
So my question is, do you have like a zip code on them as well as their name? Because I wonder if by, we could match them up in NGP Van and have a subset of them be identifiable that way.
Yeah, that is something that I think Ryan mentioned doing as well.
That could probably be done automatically as well through the APIs. There may even be an easier way to just like throw in a spreadsheet and have it give you back more data. I don't know if that would be helpful. But I think if you could prepare like some more specifics on what you need to gather and then maybe provide a sample on the data, then I think that we could provide some recommendations on here's some tools that you could use, or here's some non-technical solutions of process ideas on how you could go about it, that sort of thing.
Yeah, okay.
I would suggest, so one of Erica's previous needs was the email support, like replying to emails. I would suggest maybe we create a temporary private channel in Slack and put Brian, if you're interested in this, and Erica and Ryan, because he seems to be very familiar with the data at least, and anyone else from this who's interested. Put that discussion there and schedule more calls or do it asynchronously in text, if whatever is easy.
It seems like Ryan Ochoa would be the lead of this because he's the one in the data. And I'm on that email support team. And so I've seen some of the emails of people where they've accepted, like where they've sent them. So we could do the first pass on the people that they've given funding to, and then kind of work out from there.
I have a clarifying question. Given the number of records that he's gone through already or that have already been processed, do we believe that, this was touched on already, do we believe that we're going to have to reach out and collect more information from that 20,000? Do we have a sense of like half of that, their stories give us all the info we need? Just trying to understand the scope.
I don't think in this first run, because we don't really have enough time to do that, but that is something that we are going to want to do going forward. But during this first pass, we just need to get enough info, pick a couple stories as well, anecdotally, to pass on, as well as, you know, have like a percentage of these people here are from this industry, or I'm just throwing that out there, you know, as an idea of the kind of data we're looking for. But going long term, meaning in the next 3 weeks or so, we're going to need way more volunteers for the calling process.
Annie? Yanni, you have a hand up?
Yeah, so two questions on it. One, would that donor you're talking about be Bake, who pulled $1 billion out of what was it?
Jack? You mean Jack, who pulled out of all his shares out of Square?
Yeah.
Maybe.
And the other, which I think is amazing that he did that. But the other question is, were you thinking that this would more be a manual go through or a like programmatic?
I mean, I would love it to be a programmatic run through, but you know, I don't know. I'm an IT girl. I'm not a data girl. There's a difference.
Yeah, I was just wondering if it would make sense for us to like basically put to it the way that I see going through the data quickly without having to do a lot of research and back-end programming on analyzing word usage in those stories would be to put together a team that would individually go through every single one and fill out the bigger detailed form after it goes through like an NGP van pull.
I would suggest that we take this into that chat and then clarify exactly what needs to be done, because it will probably evolve as we look at the data. So I'll just add everyone who is invited to this and that, and then you can remove yourselves if you're not interested in that particular project.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask those because I know we'd been talking about mostly the program tool side of things.
Yeah, I'm sorry I'm pulling us away from that part of the conversation.
We want to help, you know, with satisfying these needs.
Yeah, this is one of our rapid response needs.
Cool. Does anyone want, well, do you guys feel like we should go back to agenda or talk about this more? Anyone?
I think if we're going to take it.
Oh, sorry, I was going to ask one thing around rapid response needs. Do we have like a MailChimp for that? Because I'm not in the Slack all the time, and I don't know, might be good to have something like that.
Oh,
at the moment, the weekly meeting's been going out via Sendinblue through Peter's account. It's basically
there is no rapid response set of asks generally. I think that's what Mike was referring to. That this is it right now.
New. Yeah, okay. I think we should go back to the agenda, just because if we're going to meet off in a different group, that I think we could hash that stuff out.
Travis, are you able to kind of synthesize what we've talked about in some useful way?
In what form?
I mean, ultimately, we want to get to some sort of action items here.
I see.
Or at least, yeah.
I mostly took some personal notes. It sounds like Galaxy Digital is very interesting. I mentioned this earlier. I filled out the form to get a demo of it. I think it might be useful for some of the people that did some of the custom programming to maybe join me in that demo and kind of get a sense for it. I love Mike, since we built Yang or Me, we could pull Howard in if he's available. Maybe run through it with our tinted glasses on and see, like, is this something we could integrate well with? Is this something that we think we could like address develop the capabilities in some other means? From my perspective, that seems like one action item. I have like a personal action item maybe, in that I want to talk to Simon and maybe Loiza about some of the data cleanliness things. I'm sure other people may be interested. I think they saw the result of a lot of disconnected systems or poorly connected systems, and perhaps getting some sort of like some recommendations there about how we can avoid getting into a messy situation might be helpful. Those are the things that are top of mind for me. I'm sure there are other action items.
Everyone in here should be in that Galaxy Digital, or at least get an invitation? Is that?
I'm happy to invite everyone, yeah.
Erica, do you already have like an instance that you're testing?
Yes, no, I'm sorry. They don't actually give you a demo. They show you a demo.
Yeah,
So
she said that she'd be willing, when I was on the video with her, because she went through like in detail on the different features. She'd be willing to have one recorded for us to use internally, but that it couldn't be used, like it couldn't be posted on like YouTube or anything like that. It would have to be a video file that we share in a private way.
So Travis, is this still that you want to test an actual instance though?
I think if they can't provide that, I think just doing kind of the sales call is probably also valuable. So it'd be great if we had an instance, but I think a call with a rep still is valuable.
what I could do is get with Miranda and have her set up another demo with all of us. Or is that something that you already have going on that you're trying to set up, Travis?
I'm not that far along. I just filled out a form, and I think one of our salespeople just called me. I don't know if it's Miranda or not. So if you already have a relationship there, it may make sense to just piggyback on that.
I think that would be a great action step, because I don't want to feel like I'm making this decision uninformed from those that will be using it the most. So if the more people that are that get their eyes on this and have a feel for it and how it functions, the better I'll feel if I decide either way,
Makes sense.
So how do I word this? It's like we're going to have a sales call. Is that right?
Yeah, demo. We're going to have a demo.
With multiple tech people?
A rep. Yeah, multiple tech people.
Who definitely wants to be on that? Sounds like Travis, Erica.
I'd like to take a look as well.
Brian, Yenny.
Yeah, I already had one, but I'd be happy to join in as well.
So at least these people, if not more.
In terms of action items, if we're ready to move on, one thing that we identified as a gap is like a supporter CRM or something that fulfills that set of needs. So I can think of two action items there. One might be clarifying those needs and potentially helping with some evaluation of potential solutions. And then there might be a slightly like higher level thing of like identifying other gaps and doing a similar sort of thing. It sounded like supporter CRM was kind of the most clear need that doesn't have a clear solution yet.
And as there was a couple of things that were in use, like Nation Builder was mentioned. Does that have CRM functionality?
Yeah, it's I don't know if you saw my, I sent a link that has a review of all of these things. And it was on there, and what I got from that with Nation Builder was that it was difficult to use for the end user. But yeah, somewhere in here I sent a link with reviews for all of these management tools.
I just reposted it.
Thank you.
Let me add that into the notes here. I have a friend who worked on Nation Builder software for like a number of years. So if it turns out that like it's one of those things where if you have help from someone who wrote it, then it's easy, then I'm happy to pull them in.
So I think some of the criteria, I think what I heard was that we need criteria for how we're evaluating these tools.
This
Did I hear
seems to me like something that maybe isn't a #1 priority for Humanity Forward HQ itself. Would that be accurate, Erica? Or do you feel like it is the supporter CRM evaluation?
Oh no, that's my most important tool to me. That's like my main objective is to get the right software in place.
Okay, so that is in your short-term kind of.
Yes.
Okay, all right, great.
Yes.
So are you like the owner of this agenda item?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
But I don't feel like I have enough experience in what it's like to be out in the field to solely make those decisions. So I have plenty of experience in membership and nonprofits, but not in such an action-oriented organization. Like this is, politically involved and legislatively. It's just different. There's some differences there that I need your expertise for.
Well, we can definitely, I would recommend that spec or whatever be like some kind of group editable document that we can all kind of evolve over time. Yeah. So should we give ourselves a self-imposed deadline for having a spec or something like that?
I mean, could we have it done? I would like to have it done before we meet with Miranda. So if we did that by, let's see, what's today, Wednesday? Is 2 days long enough? Maybe we should shoot for early next week. I don't know what's realistic.
So early next week would be good for me.
Yeah, I think so too, because we've got this other rapid response stuff to deal with.
So this is I guess kind of the team that's invested on it myself. We'll be invested in this. So
definitely add me to that list as well.
Okay, great. So we all want to make sure that we have a spec. So we're going to come up with a spec by when?
Monday or Tuesday.
Monday? Okay. So Monday.
And I can ask her to schedule us on Tuesday, I guess.
Let's say Sunday then, just to give us a little, well, that's Easter. Well, it's coronavirus Easter, so.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I forgot it was Easter. Ugh.
Okay, so some sort of draft spec. I think we need to have some sort of draft spec and then like a day for people to look at it who haven't had time to look at it and be like, oh, it's okay.
Are we going to have like a communal doc that we just start listing spec items in, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
How do I start that? I can start that.
Great. And then
send it to us.
Will you send that to us also in a Slack thing, or?
Yeah, I could do it in Slack. Probably it's easiest.
just link it to this agenda?
Just thinking about how best to, like, I don't want every time Erica has a thing, it spawns off into another private Slack channel, but maybe that's okay.
I don't know, having things
If it
organized
works,
by topic, okay.
yeah, that works for you. Great. All right.
Yeah, and they can be archived after the push is done.
Of course, yeah. Okay.
Or which Slack group is this, or Slack?
It's the Yang 2020 Slack.
Oh, that one. Got it.
Yeah, I'll take it upon myself to add everyone.
Yes, I need to update the link for that.
Oh, you got my email. Nice.
You,
Yes.
Simon.
Thank you.
So I'm like juggling the main job stuff as well. So
Of course. Yeah. Okay, so I do have an action item here for rapid response. Thank you. All right, I'm going to mute myself. Someone else.
While he's typing that, I'll just say one more thing about Galaxy Digital and their Get Connected software is it's very price efficient. Cost is very manageable. I remember during the campaign, Mobilize was like $5,000 a month, which is, I don't think that's feasible when this one is more like $5,000 a year.
And that cost is fixed regardless of utilization and number of volunteers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, she gave me 3,000.
Well, I threw in the 2
Yeah.
for the setup.
Oh, right. Yep. Yeah, and she said that she would lock in that rate for 2 years. And they also do pricing based on the budget of the organization. So like they scale their pricing based on how the organization operates versus how many people are on it or how many events are on it or things like that.
Okay, this actually seems like a reasonable condensation of action items. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So are we done?
I think so. I have another call to jump on related to, so I can report that we're putting a team together to help with the data
Yeah,
project.
You can report that for sure. There's another thing up here, like when you talk about chapters, I was thinking if someone signs up to be a chapter, however that works, is there some initial package of like, here's a website you can just pop up, so they don't have to do anything.
Yeah, exactly. The starter kit idea for just in general for campaigning, I feel like Simon and I have talked about that. But yes, I think a starter kit for our chapters would be a nice benefit for wanting to be a chapter.
Okay, so if you have another call to go to, I think Brenna probably can handle this, why the move from Spoke to Hustle question.
I can do it not very well. Spoke was what I was using as a volunteer, and literally the day before I was brought on as a campaign member, they shut down Spoke and started using Hustle. I know that Hustle is very expensive. So when I was looking at it for Mike Breuer's campaign in Kentucky, they negotiate based on state level with Democratic parties. So it was 7 cents per text message going out and coming in for Kentucky.
Holy moly.
The program that we were using was negotiated for all 2020 Democratic campaigns, and it was 5 cents per contact added to this group up to 2 million contacts. And then after that, the pricing structure changed, but you could text them as much as you wanted to for 5 cents. So it made sense on that level. But then for our voter ID platform, it was 7 cents per contact per month when you actively texted them. So their pricing structure is like so insane. They negotiate for every single different thing. So I don't know what that pricing structure would look like for the looking into texting for Hustle pricing. I can email the people that I've been in contact with at Hustle, but it could be very, very expensive, like insanely. So.
And honestly, Hustle
Spoke is like 2 orders of magnitude cheaper, I think.
And Hustle has too many problems with it to really scale out, I think. I think it needs major improvements to really be useful for the type of things we'd want to use it for.
Yeah, Hustle is tracking the conversation is absolutely amazing. Being able to tag people, and like when you're using it on a very small scale, so if there's like 5 people managing it, that's fine. When you scale up and have a ton of people managing it, things go crazy and it's really terrible.
Okay. I want to highlight that Spoke isn't without issues itself. So
we hit our 90 minutes, so I think we should let Erica go at least. We got some action items. If people want to.
Bye, Erica.
Stay on. That's
thank you
cool.
guys.
Thank you, Erica.
Few minutes.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for just being there for this. I appreciate it, and I'll talk to you soon in another instance.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Erica. See you.
Have a great day.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, the only thing I want to say about a Hustle-like thing is that Spoke does not have the ability to kind of see the thread of conversation that people are in. It's very single campaign. That's it. So you can't see the whole.
I bet
arc
that could.
Conversations.
Sorry to interrupt, but I bet that could be added with minimal effort.
Yeah, that's the only thing that makes Hustle interesting is the ability to, we can talk about this offline, but that ability to have the holistic conversation available to every single texter that interacts with a person is really great. So if that can somehow be brought into Spoke without too much drama, that would be amazing.
Nice. Thank you, Simon. Cool.
Sounds like a longer conversation needs to be had specifically about the Hustle Spoke thing and specifically voter and volunteer contact, because there's a lot to it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
All right. Cool. Well, thanks everyone. Good meeting.
Thanks everybody.
See you on Slack.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.